1861 Demand Notes. These banknotes became the first official $20 bills issued by the federal government of the United States, and their appearance was directly tied to the extreme conditions of the Civil War. During this period, the country was divided, the economy was unstable, and the government urgently needed funds to finance the army, weapons, transportation, and supplies. Metallic money, such as gold and silver, was in critically short supply as people began hoarding and hiding it due to uncertainty about the future. Because of this, paper money became a forced but strategically important solution. The name demand notes meant that these bills could be exchanged for precious metals on demand, which significantly increased trust in them. This was crucial, as the population was not yet accustomed to paper money and viewed it with suspicion.
The design of these notes was relatively simple, but it already included official seals, complex typography, and anti-counterfeiting elements. They also contained written promises from the government, reinforcing their legitimacy. Despite their short lifespan, these notes became the foundation for the further development of paper currency. They demonstrated that even in crisis conditions, a state could create a functional monetary system based on trust rather than physical backing alone.
1862 United States Notes. This series marked a true turning point in U.S. financial history, as it was the first time the government officially issued money that was not backed by gold or silver, but still had legal tender status. This meant these notes had to be accepted for all payments, including taxes, debts, and everyday transactions. They were often called greenbacks due to their distinctive green color, which later became the standard for American banknotes. At the time of their introduction, this was a risky decision, as it relied entirely on trust in the government rather than physical assets. Initially, many people were skeptical, fearing inflation and devaluation. However, through active use in the economy and government support, they gradually gained public trust. These notes allowed the government to finance the war and support the economy without needing massive gold or silver reserves. They remained in circulation for over a century, which is an exceptionally long lifespan for such currency. Their success proved that a modern economy can function on fiat money, where the primary value is trust in the state and its institutions.
1863 Gold Certificates. These banknotes were one of the most reliable forms of paper money in the United States, as they were fully backed by gold stored in the Treasury. Each note represented a specific amount of gold that could be redeemed upon request. This created a very high level of trust among the population, especially during periods of economic uncertainty when people sought safe ways to store their wealth. The design often included golden visual elements that emphasized their value and status. They were widely used in large financial transactions, international trade, and interbank settlements. Unlike other paper money, they were perceived almost as equivalent to physical gold, just in a more convenient form. However, during the Great Depression of the 1930s, the U.S. government changed its gold policy. Restrictions were introduced on private gold ownership, and these notes were gradually withdrawn from circulation. This became a major turning point in the country's financial system. Today, gold certificates are valuable historical artifacts and highly prized by collectors, representing an era when money had a direct connection to precious metals. 1875 National Banknotes. These banknotes resemble a true financial Wild West in the best sense of the term. At that time, each national bank had the right to issue its own currency under federal supervision. This meant that the same $20 bill could look completely different depending on the city or even the specific bank. They often featured local buildings, historical figures, or regional symbols, turning each note into a small story about its place of origin. People were essentially holding not just money, but a piece of local identity. However, this system also had drawbacks. Imagine traveling between cities and constantly needing to check whether your banknote would be accepted elsewhere. This created confusion and inconvenience.
As a result,
The government gradually moved toward a more centralized system. Nevertheless, these notes left behind a major legacy. Today, they are highly valued by collectors, as each one is unique and reflects a specific moment in history. They show how diverse and at the same time unstable the U.S. financial system was before the introduction of a unified currency. 1880 silver certificates. These banknotes became part of a long economic and political conflict between supporters of the gold and silver standards. At the time, the question of which metal should underpin the economy was extremely important and widely debated. Silver certificates allowed holders to exchange paper money for silver, making them more accessible to the general population, especially farmers and workers. Silver was cheaper and more abundant than gold, so these notes helped expand the money supply and stimulate the economy. They featured distinctive blue seals, which became their identifying characteristic and made them easy to distinguish from other notes. Although the $20 denomination was not the most common, it was still used in circulation. These notes also played an important role in political movements of the time, particularly the Free Silver campaign. Over time, silver lost its role in the monetary system, but these banknotes left a significant historical mark and demonstrated how monetary policy can influence society. 1890 Treasury notes. These banknotes represent an attempt to compromise between two major financial factions of the time, supporters of gold and silver. Imagine a country unable to decide on a monetary foundation, resulting in currency that could be exchanged for both metals. These were the Treasury notes. They were even called coin notes because they effectively represented metal money in paper form. This made them convenient, as people did not need to carry heavy coins, while still maintaining trust due to metal backing. The design was highly detailed and complex, making counterfeiting more difficult. They appeared during a period of active economic reform, when the government was trying to stabilize the situation and satisfy different social groups. However, this dual system could not last long. Over time, the economy moved toward a more stable and unified structure. Despite their short existence, these notes became a symbol of compromise and highlighted how complex monetary policy can be. 1914 Federal Reserve Notes, large size. This is the moment when U.S. money begins to look like a unified system, rather than a collection of experiments that changed every few years. After numerous financial crises, banking panics, and instability, the Federal Reserve System was created to bring order to monetary affairs. These banknotes were its first major and highly visible step. They were significantly larger than modern bills, which immediately gave them a sense of importance and weight. The large size allowed for detailed engravings, complex ornaments, and large portraits that were harder to counterfeit. It was during this series that Grover Cleveland's portrait became firmly associated with the $20 bill for decades. More importantly, these notes were identical across the entire country. People no longer had to worry whether their money would be accepted in another state. This greatly simplified trade, travel, and everyday transactions. At the same time, these bills were not just a means of exchange. They symbolized the government's growing control over the economy. They carried a sense of stability that had been missing before. This series marks the beginning of the modern history of the dollar, where money is no longer an experiment, but a structured system. 1915 Federal Reserve Banknotes. These banknotes appear as a short but very telling experiment in financial development. After the creation of the Federal Reserve System, the government was still uncertain how centralized it should be. As a result, the idea of maintaining some regional character in currency emerged. These notes were tied to specific Federal Reserve banks, meaning each bill had a regional origin. At first glance, this seemed like a reasonable compromise between centralization and local identity. However, in practice, it reintroduced complexity. People had to pay attention to where their money came from, which brought back old problems.
It soon became clear that simplicity and universality were more important. These notes therefore had a short lifespan and were quickly replaced by standardized currency. Today, they are seen as a transitional bridge between the old chaotic system and the modern centralized one. For collectors, they are especially interesting because they capture a moment when the system was still evolving and experimenting.
1928 Federal Reserve Notes, small size. This is one of those moments where a seemingly small change completely reshapes the system. In 1928, all U.S. banknotes were reduced in size, and this decision had major consequences. First, it significantly reduced production costs. Less paper, ink, and printing time meant millions saved. Second, the notes became far more practical for everyday use. They fit better in wallets and were easier to carry and store. This might seem like a minor detail, but such improvements are what make a system efficient. The design also became more standardized, helping people recognize denominations more quickly. At the same time, key elements, such as Cleveland's portrait, were preserved, maintaining a sense of continuity. This balance between change and familiarity helped the new format succeed. It survived decades of economic crises, wars, and technological changes. The fact that it is still in use today proves how effective this decision was.
1963 Federal Reserve Notes motto update. This change may seem small, but it opens a deep layer of historical meaning. In 1963, the phrase "In God We Trust" appeared on U.S. currency, and it was not just a decorative addition. This was the Cold War era, when ideological tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union influenced nearly every aspect of life. The U.S. aimed to emphasize its identity and values, including faith, freedom, and democracy. Currency became one of the most effective ways to communicate this message. Every person handling money in shops, transport, or daily life was exposed to this phrase. Without thinking about it, they encountered a repeated cultural message. This transformed banknotes into more than financial tools. They became carriers of ideology. Interestingly, the overall design barely changed. The same portraits and structure remained, but this small addition added a deeper symbolic layer. Even today, the phrase remains, quietly representing a historical era that still persists in modern currency. 1990. Modern security. This is the moment when money stops being just paper and becomes a technological product. Until the 1990s, U.S. banknote design changed slowly, but printing and copying technology advanced rapidly. Color copiers and improved printing methods made counterfeiting easier and more convincing. This became a serious threat to the economy. The government could no longer rely only on complex design. New solutions were needed. This series introduced microprinting, security threads, and special elements that are extremely difficult to reproduce. At first glance, the notes look almost unchanged, but a closer look reveals hidden layers of detail. This is like a secret level, only visible to those who know where to look. This marked the beginning of a new era, where money became not just an economic tool, but an engineered security system. It constantly evolves to stay ahead of counterfeiters in an ongoing technological race. This series laid the foundation for most modern security features used on today's banknotes.
2003. Colorized Federal Reserve Notes. This is the moment when money finally begins to look the way modern people expect. For decades, U.S. banknotes remained mostly green and conservative in design. In 2003, a visible visual shift occurred. Subtle shades of green, peach, and blue were introduced. These colors made the notes feel more modern, dynamic, and visually complex. However, this was not just about aesthetics. The colors also improved security by making counterfeiting more difficult.
Combined with watermarks, new fonts, fine line patterns, and intricate backgrounds, they created a multi-layered protection system. Despite all these changes, the notes remained recognizable. The portrait, layout, and core structure were preserved. This maintained a crucial balance between innovation and familiarity. If too much changed, public trust could weaken. If too little changed, counterfeiting would increase. This series successfully achieved that balance. It looks modern, but still familiar, and it became the foundation for the banknotes used today. It shows how currency evolves alongside technology while remaining part of everyday life.
In conclusion, the history of the $20 bill is not just about design or size changes, but a reflection of how the entire U.S. economy evolved over time. From the earliest notes created during war and uncertainty to modern currency with advanced security features, each version reflects the challenges of its era. First, the goal was simply to prove that paper money could work. Then came the struggle between gold, silver, and trust. Later, the focus shifted to building a unified national system. In the modern era, security and technological adaptation became the priority. Each series represents a step forward, from chaos to order, from simplicity to complexity, from local systems to global stability. Looking at a modern $20 bill today, it is hard to imagine how many decisions, experiments, and historical changes shaped it. It is not just money. It is the result of more than a century of evolution, mistakes, and continuous improvement that is still ongoing today.
If you enjoy the content, you can support the channel via the link in the description or by using this QR code. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment about what I should make the next video about.